Hello and welcome to the From the Finney podcast with me, Jake.
Me, Dan.
And me, Sarah.
Hello. So this week Ollie couldn't be with us. He's making the most of finishing uni, shall we say. So we've got Sarah, who's another one of the authors from the site, and she's joining us for episode 2. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the pre-season plans, another Twitter meltdown, and the possibility of losing Ben Pearson and how that could shape our summer transfer plans. So I think let's crack on and jump into the Ben Pearson thing. There's been a few rumours over the last few days about Bristol City coming in for him, and there's also been links for the Premier League club apparently sniffing around, who I'm led to believe are Brighton. I don't think there's any doubt that he could make it in the Premier League, but I think he needs to change a few aspects of his game in order to become a regular in the Premier League and make a career for himself there. He picks up far too many unnecessary yellow cards for just being a gobshite, basically.
Definitely, yeah.
Yep.
A few things I wanted to say about this was, the Bristol City thing, first of all, I can't really see happening. When Alex Neil signed his contract after that whole West Brom fiasco, I would assume that he was made certain assurances, one of which it's not hard to imagine would be that we weren't going to sell our best players to rivals. Yeah,
I agree.
So
I
can't really see Ben Pearson going to Bristol City, and I can't see them paying what we'd probably want for him.
Upward of 10 million, I would suspect, easily.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was 12 or more.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I would say so.
But the thing is, the club do seem to have this policy that if a Premier League club comes in for one of our bigger players, it's at least talked about or entertained.
Yeah. And so, I think we'll also try and rinse Premier League clubs for a little bit more than probably what we would have valued them at. I think Jordan Hugo's a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way on God's green earth is that guy worth £9 million. He's a really good player and I'd have him back in a heartbeat, but I think at the time he was maybe £4, £5, £6 million player. So I think, go on Sarah, sorry.
I was just going to say on the flip side to that, there was Greg Cunningham going to Cardiff last season. There was an argument that we didn't get as much as we could have done for him.
What was it? 4 million.
It was 3.5, I think, for Greg Cunningham. But I think what you have to remember is he was going into his last year of contract, and he's a fullback. And I mean, as unnecessary as it is that prices disparage between positions, fullbacks aren't really as highly thought of in terms of financial clout as strikers.
Yeah, they're not considered to be.
Going to get there for Hugo.
Yeah, they're not considered to be as glamorous, are they? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then when you look at how we've missed him, you can still say he was a key player to us, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do think if he'd have maybe had 24 months left on his contract as opposed to 12, you'd probably been looking at
money.
At least an extra million or two on top of the 3.5 that we got for him. I think back to Ben Pearson, he's if he goes, he's going to be going for more than 10 million, in my opinion.
Definitely.
He's, I'd say he probably is the best central midfielder I've seen play for North End in my time watching North End, which is about 20 years, and I'm 27. So
yeah, he's definitely the best defensive midfielder I've seen. I've been going for a short amount of time than you, obviously.
Yeah. But in terms of his discipline, I think the one thing that goes against him, and it's unfortunate, is his reputation. There's been a few times this season where he's made a challenge that if another player had made it, he wouldn't. The other player, say it was Alan Brown or Paul Gallagher or Daniel Johnson, wouldn't necessarily have picked up a booking or given away a foul.
No, absolutely, yeah.
One that springs to mind for me is the Norwich game at home, the penalty. Well,
I mean that wasn't a foul. I mean, I know
he won the ball.
Be accused of bias, and we'll say we're just Preston fans saying it wasn't a penalty against Preston, but I'd have been surprised and been quite honest about the fact that I would have been surprised if we'd got that decision ourselves.
Yeah.
And to see it go against us was a little bit sickening, and then the booking as well, because, I mean, was that the one where the referee wasn't going to book him, and then he saw it was him?
Yeah, it looked that way anyway, because he kind of watched it, and then play carried on a little bit afterwards, and then the Norwich players started booting off, and then he gave the foul. And then again, it was like a few more seconds passed, and he saw it was Pearson and got the yellow card out.
Yeah.
And another one on the flip side is when was it Borough away when Paul Gallagher came off injured after he was on the receiving end of a really bad tackle, and I think
I remember that one.
Yeah, I think Alex Neil said in the press as well, didn't he? If that was someone like Ben Pearson, it'd have been a red card or a yellow card.
Absolutely. I think was it Sheffield Wednesday away?
No, I don't think it was that, because Ben Pearson got sent off that game, didn't he?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm getting my instants mixed up.
It was around the time that we played Borough away. It was toward the end of the season anyway.
Yeah, because I think Gallagher, that was the one where he posted on like his Instagram or something, like a picture of the tackle, because it was similar to Ledson's, you know, when he got sent off at Leeds.
Yes, it was.
That kind of
it was.
Straight in at him, and even he was like,
studs up halfway up the calf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
it was a very poor challenge.
The one that stood out for me for Pearson was, do you remember like Leeds Tuesday night when he got sent off?
The home game.
Yeah, the home game. So where he, in the first half, I think it was like his first tackle, the ref like instantly brought out the yellow card.
Yeah,
like,
that happened a few times this season where the referee was like, right, Pearson's committed his first foul, I'll just book him preemptively and make sure we have no more.
Exactly. And I think it was like, because a Leeds player went in identical tackle, other side of the pitch, didn't get a booking. And I think that's where like the reputation definitely has an impact.
Yeah.
100%.
And the Leeds one effectively ended his season really, because he was then on 14 yellows, and we didn't want to risk him for the start of next year.
Yeah, because the ban carries over, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one because well, it's not a tough one because he's a quality player, and I've no doubt that he will one day end up in the Premier League. But I think the thing that concerns me about him leaving this summer is the fact that it is Brighton, and they'd probably be willing to pay what we'd ask for him. Undoubtedly, they'd be able to offer him a better package than we currently are doing.
Yeah, obviously.
And Brighton's new manager is Graham Potter, so he's had 12 months in the Championship. He'll know all about Pearson in terms of his abilities, what he can bring to a side. He progresses play really well from his deep position. Obviously, we've just spoken about his tackling. And I think one of the things that stood out to me in Ollie's article about him earlier in the year was his pace over sort of 5-10 yards is...
He's very quick because he's leaner than you think as well, Pearson. He's more of an athlete than you'd expect.
From the crowd, sometimes he looks a little bit like he's quite stocky, but like you said, he's very lean, he's quite athletic. And over them shorter distances, he covers ground really well. I mean, I know he got sent off for this one as well, but the game against... was it Sheffield Wednesday when he got sent off at home? When they played a ball from deep, and he was...
well, that one I'd say was a red, but that was because he had to be tracking back because there was just a massive gap in the defence suddenly.
Opened up. I think Story moved out onto the right and played it up to Daniel Johnson, I think, who then tried to play a ball over the top, which was intercepted, and because Story had moved out, there was a massive gap. The ball came over the top from the Sheffield Wednesday player. If it was Sheffield Wednesday, I can't remember. And
I think it
Pearson,
was, yeah.
like you said, was the one that had to sort of make up that ground and cover. But it's a prime example of his pace over that short distance. You know, he wasn't in position to cover, but he had no issues in getting there to cover.
Taking the man out.
And yeah, obviously then taking the man out. I know it's kind of a moot point because he ended up getting sent off, but you get where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't have got there in the first place if it wasn't for his turn of pace.
Yeah, exactly.
I did just want to say one thing about Graham Potter. He's proved himself to be quite a good man manager, and they're the sort of managers that you'd expect to back themselves to really make a difference with a player like Pearson with a bad reputation.
Yeah, absolutely.
About discipline, like Alexander Mitrovic, he has had disciplinary problems in the past. Maybe not so much anymore, but sort of for 3 or 4 years, a couple of years ago,
when he was at Newcastle.
Particularly when he was at Newcastle, yeah, like when he pulled Daniel Johnson's hair.
Yeah,
I can always remember quite vividly.
Yeah,
but there's managers like Ranieri who had quite a good effect on him, even though Ranieri's time at Fulham was short-lived.
Well, even Slavica Jokanovic in the season that they went up.
Yeah, him too.
He brought him in on loan and he did the business for him, didn't he? He scored the goals because they were they similarly placed to us last season before they went on a bit of a run. They were sort of mid-table, bottom half of the table sort of thing, and then they went on that unbelievable run and obviously got into the playoffs. I suppose you could say a bit like Villa this season, and obviously beat Villa last season to go up through the playoffs. But yeah, I think Graham Potter is one that you would probably imagine could get the best out of Pearson in terms of improving his record. But then I'd say that about Alex Neil, to be honest. He doesn't seem to have managed to do much. Because I think
he's been quite public in every time saying enough's enough.
Yeah, criticising him quite openly, hasn't he? Ever since he got here as well. It's not just the one occasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he'll be a massive miss if he does go. Hopefully it's not this summer.
Well, I think if he does go this summer, then that's going to completely change the mould of what we're going to go for in the transfer window, because we're going to miss that DM in the squad. It's going to leave a major hole. I know we do have Ryan Ledson in the squad, but I'm just not sure if he's ready for a full season of Championship football yet. Yeah, I like the kid. I think he's a very good prospect, but I'm just not sure if he's ready to play the role that Pearson plays quite yet. Certainly to the level of effectiveness that Pearson does.
Yeah, I agree with Dan.
Yeah,
I think as well he's got his own discipline kind of issues to.
Yeah, that's that as
well.
He's not scared of flying in, is he?
Yeah, so I think that's like another aspect of his game that Neil kind of has to develop with him. And I'm in agreement there. I don't think he's ready for that full season.
I think that ties into what we mentioned in the last podcast in terms of the LEP have just been peddling that phrase experience.
Yeah.
And if Pearson was to go, I think that is one position that is absolutely pivotal and one that we'd have to get right in terms of who we bring in.
Yeah. You can't really have an effective anchor without experience. No. Even when we brought Pearson in, he'd had a full season in League One at least.
Yeah, and I think he'd played in Scotland as well, hadn't he?
No, that was Grimshaw, I think.
I'm sure I could be wrong, but I'm sure Pearson was in Scotland, then went on loan to Barnsley in League One, and then came here. I could be wrong, but anyway, the point still stands. He had experience prior to joining us, and Ledson has that as well. But he's 21, 22, something like that. I'm
not fully sure. No,
he's still very young, and like you say, I'm not entirely convinced that he's ready to make the step up to a full season at this level. I absolutely think he'll get more game time and he'll feature more prominently this season, whether Pearson stays or goes.
Yeah.
He showed in the game against Ipswich that his ability to pick a pass a little bit higher up the field is there. You know, he played the ball through to Robinson for, I think it was Robinson's first goal. So people will say that, yeah, he's a ready-made replacement, but I think he's potentially more than that as well.
I think he's got attributes to play further forward.
Yeah,
than
definitely.
Pearson's more your standard number 4 anchor, I'd say. I mean, it's Ollie that likes his numbers in terms of
positional
players'
sense.
Positional sense, but I'd say Ledson's probably more of a 6 in that he will be that little bit more dynamic in getting forward and back.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as cut and dry as saying that Ledson is a Pearson replacement just yet. Like I said, he's 21. He's still got plenty of development to do. And I think even Paul Gallagher's come out. He's, 33, 34? Even he's come out and said that the manager's made him a better player. So there's still bags of potential there for Ledson. I just don't think he's ready to make the step up yet, which, like we said, in terms of the summer transfer activity, if Pearson does go, it's going to be critical that we get it right and we don't fanny around like we have done in the past.
No. And I think if he does go and we have an idea for who we want to replace him, it's important that we jump on that one person and don't wait until we whittle it down to the 3rd or 4th choice.
Yeah, like the right backs in January when we ended up with Joe Rafferty.
I mean, from what little we've seen of Rafferty, it wasn't too bad a choice. But I mean, he was 4th choice.
Yeah,
and it could have been worse.
Yeah, I think one scenario that springs to mind with fannying around and sort of messing about with transfer fees and stuff like that for players is Charlie Adam under, was it Alan Irvine?
When we ended up with Valisha Milakovsky.
Yeah, because we weren't willing to. I'm sure it was a case that we weren't willing to pay what whoever the Charlie Adams club was at the time, what they wanted for him. So we ended up getting Milakovsky, who was
Rangers, wasn't it?
Sure, the LEP dubbed him the Macedonian Steven Gerrard.
Yeah,
and they couldn't have been further from the truth with that. But that's a position that we don't want to end up in if Pearson does go. Like you said, Dan, if he does go and we identify a target, if the manager identifies a target, the club need to back him.
Yeah.
Because he's given the backing to the club and the fans by signing his 3-year deal.
Like, I mean, I know it may or may not be a realistic target, but if Pearson does go, I really like Sam Hutchinson at Sheffield Wednesday. Whether we'd be willing to pay what they'd want for him,
well, that'd be the question.
I severely doubt, but say for argument's sake he was the target, it would be a case of going to West Ham to Sheffield Wednesday, offering what they want for him, and securing the deal.
Not messing about and getting it done.
Because if we're going to play a system that relies on an anchorman like Pearson or like Hutchinson, then I'd say that along with goalkeeper and your lone striker, that's probably the one position that you need absolutely nailed down.
Yeah, definitely. I think one player that ticks a lot of boxes for him, for the club, and I'm sure we've mentioned him either on the pod last week or maybe in some written content that we've published on the website. I can't remember, but I'm sure we've definitely mentioned him as Paul Coots.
He didn't quite make my final cut for the transfer targets thing, but yeah,
maybe we've just tweeted about him then. But yes, he's not the same kind of player as Pearson in that he won't sort of do the tough tackling and all that sort of stuff, but he ticks a lot of boxes for us in terms of he's got championship experience. He's on a free, so we wouldn't have to pay anything for him. Wages might be an issue, but I'm sure there's something that we could sort out.
There's going to be some wiggle room in the wage budget, especially in the early parts of the window.
Yeah, I would imagine so. There's been talk as well, hasn't there, that we are actually increasing our wage cap, I think, this season, or we'll be looking at increasing our wage cap for the right players. So yeah, I think he's a player that I wouldn't mind see coming in, whether Pearson goes or not. To be honest, I think he'd be a good option in the middle of the park. But yeah, I mean, is there anyone else that you'd think maybe would be worth looking at if he was to go? Or
if Pearson was to go, I mean, Hutchinson is, I mean, for me, the go-to replacement, as I would say the second best defensive midfielder in the league after Pearson.
Yeah.
Unless we were going to go and look for somebody from the Premier League, but again, it's just a question of how much money we'd be willing to spend.
Or it's another loan, and then they come in for 12 months. We make another club's player better, and the likelihood is that they'll go because we won't be able to afford them. But if it works out and we get promoted, then who knows? Who knows? But
so you'd hope we do what we did in January and just get it done early doors, get them into pre-season, kind of gel the squad. But yeah, I'm hoping they continue with that and just give Alex Neil the backing of what he needs to bring in.
I think as good as January was, I think that was also the frustrating bit, was that it highlighted that the club are willing to back the manager.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But it was just when we looked like we were in trouble that we actually thought better pull our finger out.
Yeah, exactly. Hemmings loosened the purse strings, but he's got a track record of doing that, hasn't he? I'm sure it was under Phil Brown when we were. I know we ended up getting relegated, but when we weren't 100% down. In the January window, he went out and spent a bit of money on sort of. I think
we had Ian Hume on a ridiculous wage for what we were paying everybody else.
And then there was Nathan Ellington came in. The
Duke.
I think Leon Clark was another one, or maybe did he come in League One?
I can't remember Leon Clark. He did so little for us.
He was just another. He was like David Amu, but before his time.
Yeah. Well, what summed Eddie Johnson up for me was when we beat Sheffield United 3-1 towards the end of the season. It was Nathan Ellington actually who scored a goal, went off to celebrate in front of the Finney, and Ian Ashby had to physically pull Eddie Johnson to the celebrations because he just wasn't interested. Yeah. And that summed him up for me. He just didn't seem like he was interested in playing for us. No. That's something we have to avoid. Signing younger players on loan like we have been is sort of a way to avoid that. But even Nemecha got accused of not looking interested at time, which I thought that was bollocks. But there is always a risk with loan players that could happen. Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that you have to commend Peter Ridsdale and Alex Neil for. Probably more Peter Ridsdale, because I think we've been quite consistent in our transfer policy, if you want to call it that, since he's been at the club, in that they, from what I can gather from going to the fans forum and speaking to other people that hear things from within the club and whatnot, that they will put just as much effort into finding out about the player as a person as opposed to his ability. And if he doesn't fit the bill in terms of what we're looking for and whether he'll fit into our dressing room or not, then it doesn't matter how good he is. And I'm sure this is what Alex Neil said at the forum. It doesn't matter how good he is, but if he doesn't fit the bill for that, then we won't sign them. So I think that's one thing that I think the club have got right, that you can't sort of knock them for as far as transfers go, because there's plenty of things that you can give the club shit about in terms of transfers. But I think finding the right personality and type of person, if you will, is something that they've done really well. But yeah, have you got anything else to add on Pearson potentially leaving? Any replacements? Nothing from me. I'd say we could probably head for a break at this point.
Yeah, cool. Welcome back to From the Finney. No, let's do that again. That was shit. Welcome back to the From the Finney podcast. We'll sort of dive straight back in. I know we mentioned last week about a Twitter meltdown. in terms of the kit and people sort of going off on one about how it looked and the Just Sport deal and Nike, and somewhat unsurprisingly, if you're on Twitter and a North End fan, there's been another one this week with Liverpool winning the Champions League on Saturday night.
And the reaction.
There's been a lot of talk online. Yeah, exactly. About the volume of Liverpool fans and that they should all support the local club and blah, blah, blah. And I completely get that. I would encourage anyone that's born locally, lives locally, to at least take an interest in your local club. I think more, even if they are doing pants in the league, if we're in League 2 or non-league, I don't think there's anything wrong with supporting your local team just for the sense of community that it brings you.
Definitely.
But it just seems to be, in my opinion, it seems to be sort of like a massive kick-off over not a lot. The proximity that we are to Liverpool and Manchester, there's obviously going to be a lot of Liverpool fans, United fans, City fans. I'm sure if City were in the Champions League final, it would have been exactly the same. I'm sure it would have been the same for Man United. So, yeah, I don't disagree with what people are saying online. I just feel like it was just much ado over nothing, to be perfectly honest. All things considered.
I'm very much with you on that. I mean, Preston's a fairly populous place, and it would be nice to see 23,000 on Deepdale every week. But when you think about it, Liverpool are a massive global club who are essentially right on our doorstep. I mean, for people who listen to the podcast who don't know me, who haven't interacted with me, I'm actually teaching in Liverpool a stone's throw from Anfield, and I live in Ormskirk, which is sort of equidistant between Preston and Liverpool, but I live here so I can get back to Preston easily, and I can also get into Liverpool just as easily. So to have such a massive club that's an hour and a half in the car or on public transport away, it's always going to attract quite a significant number of fans, I think.
Yeah, and
it's hardly the same as, say, the amount of Manchester United fans there are probably living in Hammersmith.
Yeah, yeah, or but just London in general.
London in general, yeah.
Yeah, just to jump in on it, I think my frustration with it, and I did get a bit annoyed on Saturday night, is because I think it's just in general, our support isn't great. So we get 10, 11,000.
Yeah, I reckon we probably average about 11, don't we?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And I think that was kind of highlighted, especially after after Birmingham, when we beat them 1-0, and that was when we were still in the shout with the playoffs.
I think, did that take us level on points for the playoffs, that win?
Yeah, that took us to 7th and just goal difference keeping us out.
Yeah.
And that was when people started to think, hello.
Yeah, that we had a chance. And I remember Alex Neil's post-match comments were about these lads deserve more support than they're getting. And I think that obviously when your manager's saying it, and that's
it is a problem if the manager addresses it directly, I would say, because that happens so rarely in football. And I mean, it wouldn't be such a problem if those 11, 12,000 that make it onto most home games were our only fans, but we've seen so many more. You see,
Liverpool and United, prime examples in the Cup.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to be one of those cynics who bashes away games, because I like an away game as much as the next guy, but I'm willing to bet that maybe 2,000 of the 7,000 we sometimes take to big away games don't come on the home games and go to the away games for the occasion and the piss up. And I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, obviously, any support is great support for your team, but why can't they come on home games? I would question. the cynic in me would question that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think what the point we're trying to make here really is not so much about the amount of Liverpool fans or United fans living in and around Preston. I think for me, in my opinion, it comes back onto the club. Talking of away games, Rovers away is a prime example. They've got a big, massive fan zone right outside the ground, which I don't know, that the way that the club's going in terms of progression at the moment, it just seems to be really slow. Over the last 2 years, they've made a marked improvement, even down to things like the advertising for the season tickets. I mean, we're even doing YouTube ads this year, which is, it's like welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah, nicely produced ones as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are, absolutely. You've got to commend the club for that. But they're probably about 5 years behind the curve.
Yeah, like you're saying, I think there's just a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, there is, absolutely.
Which they are trying to bridge, like you're saying, like with their advertising, social media, they are getting better. But I think it's like you say, when you're competing against clubs like that have got kind of these great fan zones, like I saw one at, is it West Brom? They've got a really good one.
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, if they can bridge that even more, kind of, I don't know, I think just being more transparent with fans and just having a two-way conversation, maybe that could help.
Yeah, I think a prime example of that is the training ground. Hundreds of fans got involved with the council side of that and the planning permission side of that. And if I remember correctly, it should have been this season coming that the training ground was proposed to be ready for. And we've, as far as I'm aware, not made a start on it.
Yeah, we've not broken ground yet, have we?
Not as far as I'm aware. Could be wrong. Happy to be corrected on that. But it, at the fans forum in, I think it was February, is just another example of how, like you said, Sarah, there's just such a disconnect between the club and the fans, and there's. I'm gonna say it, but some of the dinosaurs at the top of the club and the way that they're running it, people like John Kay, who, he just turns up to a fans forum and he just spouts the same old bollocks every time, and it's like you just wouldn't be surprised if he's had a 20-minute phone conversation with Trevor Hemmings before the fans forum. And he's just literally towing the party line, and just saying the bare minimum that he needs to say. Like going back to the fan zone, there was talk, I think, at the fans forum last year about making a start on that, and it was only at the fans forum this year that the majority of people found out, unless they went on the forum on PNE Online or were on Facebook in whatever groups are on Facebook. It was only at the fans forum that people actually found out what the hold-up was with the fan zone, and that was that I think they'd found asbestos in the roof, so they'd just scrap the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like what they've got a perfectly functioning website. They've got a girl running it who's more than capable of putting out a statement to just say, this is the latest update with the fan zone. We're not pursuing it at the minute because of X, Y, and Z. Just put it on the website, let everyone know. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Then you've not got sort of Chinese whispers doing the rounds online and people saying one thing and then it turning into something completely different. And it's stuff like that I think winds people up and keeps them away from the club. And it's hard in this sort of day and age with social media and all that. Like I said, with some of the dinosaurs that you got at the top of the club, that I suspect would be making things difficult for a very small marketing team at the club. But I just think they could be doing so much more to not shoot themselves in the foot. Like I said, it just feels like a load of false promises. And I think that is one of the reasons why there's so many sort of fans of other clubs in the city that more than likely have never been anywhere near Old Trafford or the Etihad or Anfield, But I just think that, commend the club. They're making an effort. They've started to improve things, but it could just be so much better with a lot less effort, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was just a bit of a rant or...
I completely understand where you're coming from. I mean, I know you talked about John Kay specifically at the fans' forums. It would be a nice start if just every answer that was given at these fans forums didn't feel like just recycled scripts.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what sort of kills the relationship between the fan and the club for me, is if I've never been to one of these fans forums because I'm either busy or I know what I'm going to get from it, which is nothing new.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like that. On Twitter, on PNE Online, on Facebook, you see a lot of people saying, I'm not going to go because it's just going to be the same old stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I remember, I don't know if it wasn't the last one, but the one, was it September, like the start of the season?
Yeah.
I think it was either on the training ground or the fan zone, where they gave an answer, and even Dave Seddon was like, well, that's not clear, so he went back to them to get clarity on it, and I think that's highlighting the issue that they're not really answering anything.
Yeah, they're just sort of pussyfooting around it, aren't they?
For Dave Seddon to comment on a lack of transparency between a media outlet and the club, it's quite something.
Yeah, sorry, Dave, if you listen to this. But yeah, I think
it's his job, really, isn't it? He works for the club just as much as he works for the LEP.
Yeah, well,
I'll just say on that.
I suppose he has to keep the club on side, really, doesn't he? As opposed to working for the club. I suspect it's more a case of he works.
I'm not suggesting he picks up a salary from them.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that you were suggesting that, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably enough about that. The one final thing that I wanted to touch on was pre-season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not convinced that playing the likes of Bamber Bridge, Fylde, Fleetwood, Chorley, all right, we've not played Chorley for the last 2 or 3 seasons, but playing sort of the lower league, yes, but there's playing lower league and then there's playing teams that are just not. The majority of the teams that were playing in pre-season that have been confirmed so far, Bamber Bridge, Cork, AFC Fylde, Fleetwood Town and Chorley, they're not
more than half of them are semi-professional.
Yeah, exactly, and they're not really going to come out and attack you. They're more than likely going to sit back, try and
it's as much an attacking play exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Ground, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Which I'm just not right sure what. Obviously, there's a fitness aspect. There's the match fitness aspect as well. But I'm just not sure that it's what we need. I think we need to add a little bit of variety in there. We mentioned on the last pod about going to Fire Island again. I know there's been talk that Alex Neil, I'm not sure whether this season as well, but last season was trying to agree a trip to Spain and to play some different opposition out there. More, I suspect, from the way that they would come and play the game. I suspect a Spanish team or a German team or maybe not an Italian team, French team, would be more inclined to come and have a go at us.
Yeah.
And just present something a bit different. I'm just not sure that the likes of Fylde and Cork and Bamber Bridge and Fleetwood are going to do that for us.
Yeah. I'd probably make a similar point to the one I made last time, which is that Briggs sort of the traditional curtain opener and it keeps them financially afloat for a year. So I don't have a problem with that, and it's a nice sort of community game. But
I'm not saying I'm unhappy with the Bamber Bridge game. I love going on the Brig game. I go every year. It's a local one as well, so it means I don't have to drive that far to get there.
Yeah. But what I mean was, what I was gonna carry on to say was, the more teams we play like that, who, as you say, are just gonna bed in and try and not concede as many goals as possible, the only real match fitness that, say, Jordan Story and Ben Davies are going to get are when they jog up for corners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which isn't going to do them much good, really, in the long run.
Well, I was looking at, so for example, like Norwich, Sheffield, and Villa. I was looking at their pre-season friendlies that they did last summer, and so
Sheffield United.
Yeah, Sheffield United, and they kind of had more of a mix of like League Two, League One sides. Villa played like West Ham. They also did Dynamo Dresden.
Yeah.
And I think Sheffield, not 100% sure, but I think they did like a training camp in Portugal. So I don't know. I think we definitely need more like League One, League Two sides.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not going to play a championship team.
No.
Yeah, I think swapping out the likes of AFC Fylde and Cork City, because you'd probably put Cork at league, maybe League Two level.
Yeah.
I mean
even if
Kevin O'Connor was anything to go by, then maybe not even that.
Yeah. I mean, if we were going to swap those out, I mean, we've played Oldham in the past. I mean, Oldham have tried to injure our players, so maybe not specifically them. But that sort of team. Carlisle, we used to play quite a lot in pre-season.
Yeah.
Although they're not in Football League anymore, are they? So I don't know. Yeah, I think they're Vanarama now, aren't they? Or they might be League Two. I don't know.
I was going to say, unless they got relegated this season, I'm sure they were League Two. Obviously, we'll play the customary 2 home games against Premier League opposition, which from what I've heard is potentially Newcastle, Watford, or Burnley. And we played West Ham and Burnley last year.
Yeah, Burnley seems to be becoming a semi-regular thing now.
Yeah, which is probably one of the reasons why I don't particularly mind them so much anymore. Whereas when I was younger, like for me, the big derby was Burnley.
Yeah, was for me as well.
But I'm quite nonplussed about Burnley these days.
I mean, it's hard to be very anti a club that's so well run and is
doing so well.
Probably going to get slaughtered as a Preston fan, but so genuinely quite likeable at the moment as a football club.
Yeah, it is. But
it's hard to have that sense of absolute hatred that I used to have for them when I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely. Did you both just hear that?
Yeah.
Your cat's coming. He's just trying to put his point across.
In terms of pre-season, obviously those 2 Premier League games at home are massive for us, and I think the timing of them is important as well, given that they're probably about 2 weeks to 10 days out from the start of the season, so it's a decent level to go in at. But I think that build-up of the sort of non-league, lower league teams, and then just jumping straight into a Premier League game or a game against the Premier League side, I don't know. And
then we just in case we get hammered by both Premier League teams, we then have a little game against Fleetwood as well a week before the season starts, just to get another win under our belts.
Tactical.
Yeah,
definitely tactical.
Yeah, I think like you say, we just need more of a like mix, and looking at what other championship clubs do is they do go for like League One, League Two. I mean, it's not necessarily about needing like a training camp, like, because that was the last time we did it in Austria, like Alan Irvine or someone.
I remember us beating a little Austrian team 11-0.
Yeah, because I'm not sure like that season, that pre-season campaign, I can't remember what the season was like after, so I don't know if that actually benefited us. But I just think we need a bit more, like you say, a bit higher level.
Yeah, I just think that the preparation could be a little bit better in terms of the level of opposition.
Yeah, I just think it couldn't hurt, because I mean, if players are going to be challenged more, they're going to arguably benefit more from competing against a better side than just absolutely hammering a smaller side.
Yeah.
There's only so much confidence and fitness that putting 8 past a team of plumbers can do for you.
Exactly.
With the greatest of respect to the teams that we are playing in pre-season.
I think if we were to do like a training camp abroad and say like Germany or France or somewhere like that, and to play, even if you were to play a Bundesliga 2 side or whatever it is, League 2, Ligue 2 in France, a team from that level, maybe not specifically a Ligue 1 team or a Bundesliga side, as much as the level of opposition will sort of, I would suspect, benefit us. The playing style will as well, I think, and the way that, like a lot of German teams, if we were to play someone like Mainz, for example, well, I don't know them specifically, but I would imagine that a lot of German teams tend to play with a bit more energy, a bit more of maybe a bit similar to us in the way that we play, and it just gives us something a bit different to think about. Like I said, instead of just playing teams that are more than likely going to sit back and dig in and try and make things difficult. But yeah, have you got anything else to add, or
not on the pre-season now?
Nope. Cool. So yeah, I think we'll call it a day there. Thanks for listening to episode 2 of the From the Finney podcast. We'll be back soon enough, hopefully, with episode 3 for you. Hopefully we'll have Ollie with us again. Might even do all 4 of us. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ollie, if you're listening, hope you're in a better place soon, mate.
Yeah. Well, that sounds a bit sinister.
But yeah, hopefully we'll have a full contingent next time. Sarah, if you are happy to get involved again, then we can do, without wanting to sound crass, we could do a 4-way pod.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
But yeah, thanks again for listening. You can keep in touch with us on social media and keep up to date with all the new content that we're publishing on the website and all the other things that we're working on. We're on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. If you just search for From the Finney, you'll find us. Just give us a like or a follow, whatever it is, on whatever platform, and say hello. So yeah, thanks for listening. See you later, Dan.
See you, Jake. Always a pleasure.
Yep, same to you. See you later, Sarah. I hope you're happy with your debut.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Good. Right, cool. Thank you very much, guys.